Councillor Cherry, can you hear us online?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. All right, Council, I'd like to call this council meeting April 4th, 2023 to order with adoption of the agenda is amended to include item number 5, which is a presentation by RMR. Someone want to make that motion? Councillor Palmer, seconded by Councillor Devlin. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting of March 28th. Councillor Cherry, seconded by Councillor Devlin. All in favor? Motion's carried. Any business arising from those minutes? Councillor Palmer.
Mayor Souls, can we defer the business arising from the minutes to the next meeting? I wasn't actually anticipating that.
Sure.
See that.
Okay, we can do that. Thank you. All right, we're going to go right into item number 5, presentation by Revelstoke Mountain Resort, summary on their public information session. So, Peter.
Let's see if I can figure this out. Here we go.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, honorable councillors. Thanks for taking some time to listen to me. Purpose of this presentation in particular is in regards to a public open house that we held at the request of council last week. We'll just share some of the feedback we got and some of the conversations that we had. I think I saw most of you there. So obviously it was on the 28th. It was a 5-hour session, open house. We had about approximately 200 people through the door. We had 7 or 8 of our team greeting people and just having open discussions about the amendment at hand, but also just about the resort plans in general. So there's a lot of dialogue, a lot of conversation. I think I had 2 or 3 30 to 45-minute conversations just with individuals. So, couldn't be more pleased with the results and some of the feedback, and just that connection that we got with the community, and very similar feedback from all the other members of our team. So, include a little, just a photo of what it looked like. So we had the room full. I think most of you had stopped by, but full of just materials outlining certain concepts and plans and older plans, and just really to create discussion, and it was quite effective. So the next few slides are all about what we heard and how we talked about it. So probably number one thing was confusion about what the bylaw amendment application means. So we tried to clarify that. And this application is not for an increase in density or bed units. That this application is not a change in OCP requirements, zoning requirements. I think an emphasis that this isn't changing the resort neighborhood zoning to core zoning was really important. People were very interested to hear that. Or uses are not being changed. And that this application is an approval for development. I think when people understood that we were really applying for the right to apply for density changes, it really changed the tone of how they thought about the whole situation. So, other things we heard: how does proposed density shift compare to Mackenzie Village? That was quite a common question. A lot of people were asking. They're concerned about that density in that parcel and seeing the similar densities in the parcels off of Nickel and Airport Way. So we try to demonstrate what it looks like. If you look at the slide, the highlighting in gray is the densities at Mackenzie Village versus area 4 and 5, which are the areas that people are most concerned about. You can see there's quite a dramatic difference from a density perspective between the two. Community housing is great and badly needed. That was a common theme. People were excited to see the plans around community housing, parcel at Airport and Nickel. One of the other common comments was they'd like to see no short-term rentals in that parcel, and we definitely agree with them. We would be very supportive of moratorium on future short-term rentals in the entire Heights neighborhood. And you know, the understanding that the province just released new enforcement standards and abilities and tools that, you know, we definitely love to engage in a conversation and be a part of that process and try to achieve that goal. Environmental concerns definitely came up, you know, around golf development, just resort in general, groundwater interruptions. We had Heather Taylor from Associated Environmental Consultants, so she's that's one of the larger environmental consultants in British Columbia there to answer questions, and it definitely was. She definitely had lots of conversations. And people, just ensuring people that, you know, there's provincial and municipal regulation approvals that need to go through a process for us to be able to move forward with any sort of development pieces. I think that was very assuring for most people. Residents, you know, they're looking for timelines. They want to understand how long some of this is going to take. You know, and really it's hard to say how long something that's not planned yet is going to take. But so we really focused on stuff we have a firm understanding of and those are projects that are underway. You know, we have 64 unit staff housing prefab. We have 92 unit buildings, Cabot Golf Course and the Helly Hotel, all expected to be completed by 2025 and represent about $92 million investment. And obviously, future planning is dependent, you know, on results today, and as we move forward in the DP process after this. So, definitely a lot of conversation about resort traffic along Nicole Road, around Airport Way, around Shield Road, as well as lots of conversations about trail networks and connectivity. You know, what we presented there were concepts. Obviously, any sort of road connections would be in collaboration with the city, and but what entrance to what area and what makes the most sense from a traffic perspective. You know, access, the Shield Road residents were very happy to hear that it was probably likely to only be emergency access out of that zone. And everyone's very excited about, you know, that trail connectivity plans, and that is a priority for the resort, and that we have commitments within our DP for the golf course to ensure that existing trails either enhanced or expanded. Concerns about parking, availability conditions, public transit, connectivity to the resort. I do appreciate that.
If I can just hold you for a moment.
Sorry.
Could you please turn off your cell phones in the gallery, please? Thank you. All right, Peter, carry on.
A little background music maybe makes this more exciting. Concerns about parking availability, conditions, public transit, connectivity to the resort. We're very concerned about that too. You know, so things, you know, parking is going to be transitional as we move through development stages. As we come into with the golf course development, that'll be our first of the permanent parking lots. So that's going to be a higher quality, better experience parking. Comes to the golf course, and then people are really excited to hear about you know, RMR, and Tourism Revelstoke, and BC Transit, and City of Revelstoke working towards a better transit plan and amalgamation of our services. So I think that's really powerful and an important thing for the residents of Revelstoke is that public transit piece. From an overall perspective, you know, I think the community was almost overwhelmingly supportive once they understood what we were talking about. People are excited to see plans. They want to see the community housing. They're excited about a new golf course, new real estate, new mountain development, lifts on the mountain. The lifts are definitely a high priority for those who are skiers, and people recognize that the investment on mountain adds value to the whole community. And I think, you know, and it was really great to see just how appreciative people were to disconnect and have an opportunity to come and just ask questions and get to understand things. So that kind of segues into what we learned. We need to be more engaged, communicate with the community more often. So our plan now is to do 2 town hall sessions a year, one in September, one in March. And go with quarterly updates out to interested parties, so have people sign up, and we'll share with you what's happening, and really try to ensure that we're always transparent, and recognizing that what happens at the resort's really important to the community, and that collaboration with the City of Revelstoke is essential for successful development, and we definitely recognize that, and we want to make sure we're always aligned with the OCP. Yeah, one last thing that we happy to hear from Bill Hunter, the director of Mount Resource Branch, and just they're expressing their support for this process and for this amendment, and they really do feel that it will help ensure that we're able to live up to our obligations with the Master Development Agreement and align with the LCP. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
My
Any
pleasure.
questions of Mr. Nielsen, council? Seeing none, thank you again, Peter.
My
Appreciate
pleasure.
the summary and for putting together that information session. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Your Worship.
All right. As we move on, I am going to call to order the public hearing. And I'm going to make a couple statements here. The speakers list has been established. If you wish to address the hearing, please ensure that your name has been placed on the list located at the sign-in table, just beside Mr. Black there. You may add your name to the list at any time. Each speaker's initial presentation will be limited to 3 minutes, provided the comments are relevant to the issues at hand and the hearing is not being obstructed. The initial time limit is to allow everyone a fair opportunity to address council respecting the proposed bylaw amendment. If we reach capacity and have others outside of the meeting wishing to enter to speak, arrangements will be made for an alternate location for the public to hear the proceedings. So we do have space over in Development Services, Planning Department, room for 9 people if anyone feels that they would be more comfortable there.
Your Worship, there are 6 people there already.
6 people there already, okay. So room for 3 more. And if any of those people are there, can hear me, of course, if you need to speak, you'll be, staff will be able to bring you across, so you'll have that chance. After everyone on the speakers list has spoken once, speakers will be allowed a supplementary 2-minute presentation, which will be limited to additional comments to what was previously presented so that everyone that wishes to speak may. In your supplementary presentation, please do not repeat the comments made in your initial presentation. The public hearing is being convened pursuant to Division 3, Public Hearings on Planning and Land Use Bylaws for the Local Government Act. At this public hearing, the public will be allowed to make representations to council, and all persons present who believe their interests in property are affected by the proposed bylaw shall be given the opportunity to address council or to present written submissions respecting matters contained in the proposed bylaw. Those of you who wish to speak concerning the proposed bylaw should commence your address to council by clearly stating your name and address. Then you may give us the benefit of your views concerning the proposed bylaw. Please observe the rules. If you have any concerns with the manner in which the hearing is conducted, direct your comments to the chair. Members of council may, if they wish, ask questions of you following your presentation. However, the main function of council members today is to listen to the views of the public. It is not the function of council at this public hearing to debate the merits of the proposed bylaw with individual citizens. Everyone shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard at this meeting. No one will be or should feel discouraged or prevented from making his or her views heard. In considering the proposed bylaw, council has received documents which may influence its decision. These documents are available for review in a binder located at the sign-in table. Now, before we begin, may I have the corporate officer confirm that all due process has been followed according to the Local Government Act?
Yes, Your Worship, all due process has been followed.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to go to the speakers list and I will call names. And so first on the list, do you want me to go through the type list?
You could ask them.
So first name on the list, Jason Kelder, do you wish to speak?
No, thank you, Your Worship. Peter Nielsen represented what we wanted to say.
All right. And Mr. Nielsen, anything further to say?
Not at this time.
All right. Lindsay McIntyre, do you wish to speak?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Andrew Goldman, Mr. Goldman, do you wish to speak?
Yeah, just a few words.
If you could come to the podium, please. And if you could state your name and your civic address, please.
Andrew Goldman, 10 2080 Mackenzie Court.
Thank you.
So the Mackenzie Court is in the resort, as I think you all know. We were one of the first people to buy a lot there in 2007 or whenever they first came for sale. We constructed a house which we've been using since 2009-10. Clearly, the events that led to the current owners of the resort getting to that point, the financial collapse of those prior years and all the rest of it, are well known to everybody. And for a number of years, we wondered, we debated, we watched to see what kind of development would occur at the resort. Having seen the original master plan, obviously many things changed. To keep my remarks briefly, along with other owners, we have an interest both in our property, but also Revelstoke, very, very much so in Revelstoke, and in my case also in the town of Revelstoke, the city of Revelstoke, I beg your pardon. For a number of years, it was not clear which direction things were going to go. Not clear to us, anyway. And if you'd said, if I was attending a meeting here, equivalent meeting 7 or 6, 7, 8 years ago, the sort of the prospects and what was being said would have been quite, I would say unacceptable, but were dismaying most owners. However, I would say now, since the course of the pandemic and maybe some changes or new initiatives from the owners, a greater direction seems to be the case. And the owners, by their actions in buying up land, in making the resort whole, bit by bit, are coming forward with suggestions and ideas that, from my point of view as an owner, I find very interesting. Of course, it would be nicer to have had a definite and concrete plan 5 years ago about how things were going to go. But equally, it would be nicer if there hadn't been World War I. There's not much we can do about it at this stage. Or in my case, as you can hear, I'm English. In my case, from my point of view, it would be nicer had we not had Brexit, but we've got it. So there's no point moaning about it. So I'm supportive of this, albeit with the view that, and my view of the owners and what they're doing has changed. I believe that the incumbents who are pushing forward what they're doing are highly interested and sensitive to all stakeholders. And I think that I hope Council can support this, and I hope very much owners maintain and move forward quickly with the plans and ideas that they put forward, and we and others have discussed with them that they are thinking about. We love coming to Revelstoke. Obviously, the pandemic and a few other things made it difficult. I love the city of Revelstoke. I'm invested in that as well. I invested in that at a point when I had no idea which direction the resort was going. I'm happy to be involved in both, and I hope it can now move forward.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Evelyn Alla.
I have nothing to say.
All right, thank you. Mark McGee. Mr. McGee.
Thank you, Your Worship, Council. I just thought Mark McGee, 1095 Nickel Road. And I just thought that I have a little bit different perspective than a lot of people, having been the mayor in 2002, 2008, and spent an inordinate amount of time negotiating and being part of the master planning process that is part of really what we're talking about today. And I thought giving you a little bit of background on the master plan and the process we went through, I think it adds some light onto where we are and why we're here today. Because back then and through the commercial alpine ski policy, the idea is you have to show the public what the resort is going to look like at full build out, regardless if it ever gets there, because it's generally market driven. But the premise of the master plan is you can't design something in 1 year and then expect that 20 years later, it still will be relevant, it still will be leading edge, it still will be the thing that people want. So you have to design in the flexibility for the developer and the community to evolve that plan to make the best resort that you can based on the criteria of the day, the planning of the day, the market of the day, and that's exactly where we are now. We have limits of how much the development can be through the master plan and the master development agreement. We were part of the master planning process. The proponent and the province were part of the master development agreement. Master plan, what is it going to look like? Master development agreement, how does it get there? And there's other people here that may speak to the master development agreement. I'm only here to talk about the master plan. We were able to put in some of our local concerns that were enshrined into that and were carried into the master development agreement. But the master plan, 16,600 bed units, so many square meters of commercial space. The underlying idea was we didn't want the resort to be bigger than the community. And that's how that was set. But what we didn't want to do was say, you will make the commercial area here, you will make residential there. And when they're designing the master plan, the idea was don't let property ownership dictate how big the resort was. And so you have this commercial recreation area, the CRA, that is bigger than the resort is right now, and probably will be bigger than the resort will ever be. But the idea is design the best development, the best resort that you can, regardless of the ownership of the property. So then when you're allocating densities to the property, I'd say it's extremely difficult to allocate bed units and commercial space on property that is not in the control of the resort. So fast forward to today, the resort has acquired other properties and wants to shift densities around. That was all contemplated in the whole master plan, master development agreement. This is a natural evolution. And I don't think that there is anybody in the community that would want to say, no, we don't want the best resort. We don't want it designed and built to be the best resort that it can be. It's market driven, markets change, what people want. I think that the best news that we've had for quite some time about the resort is that they're actually going ahead and they're expanding, they're acquiring. The Cabot Links Golf Course is going to be a huge attraction. Actually, one of the 7 local concerns that we added to the master plan was that we wanted it to be a 4-season destination resort, which meant that it's not just a ski hill. It's an all year round resort that people are going to be coming to. And that's exactly what we're seeing now. And I say good for them. So I probably had a whole bunch of other things that I wanted to mention, but I think that you get the idea of what I'm talking about. Let's support, help develop the best resort that this community can see. And I think that the resort's going to benefit, but more importantly, the community is going to benefit.
Great. Thank you, Mr. McGee.
Oh, just in case anybody had any questions,
Any questions of Mr. McGee?
I guess you should do that.
No,
I can't help it.
That's okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. All right. Robert Pawadiak, Mr. Pawadiak. Name and address, please.
Robert Watercut, 2950 Camosi Road. Your worship, Councilman, thank you. Mark did a great job on summarizing 15 years worth of work into 4 minutes of what went into making a development, master development agreement. And I look around and I think there were only a few people who were in this town, let alone in this room back then. The mayor, Mark, Brady. Anybody else here? Okay, we got 2 more. Everyone else, welcome to our vision. I'm really enthused by what the resort's up to. Obviously, we had a big time out there with, Andrew didn't mention the financial collapse of the Western world, but he did mention pandemic, and it's all true. I'm just not going to repeat what Mark said. Just one thing I'm incredibly thankful for. The resort application is going to set about to curtail or eliminate vacation rentals. I think it's the biggest scourge on this town in the last 100 years. You're not alone. Every town, especially resort towns, have the same problem. And anything we can do, and I encourage the resort to go beyond what council has put in place to limit vacation rentals. And in my own developments, I'm going way beyond what the council has proposed and has effective to limit vacation rentals with consequences and enforcement, which is the bugbear all over North America, not just here. So I'm really encouraged by that. And other than that, unless you have a question about ancient history, there's only a few people here old enough to remember. I can answer it for you. Otherwise, I'll sit down and be quiet and say thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Potty? Seeing none.
Thank you.
Hey, sorry, Your Worship, just for clarification.
Sure.
Thanks. That was, Mr. Podiak was for the,
He's supportive.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I am at the end of our written list. So before I allow others to speak a second time, is there anyone in the gallery or over in planning that would like to address council at this point?
Yes, I would.
Okay, if you'd come forward, please. State your name and your civic address.
Council, Your Worship, Mike Forrest, 1351 Lee Road. When we bought our property 5 years ago, never imagined 200, 400 hotel rooms would be built across the street. I think the density shift isn't in line with the other three corners of that intersection. I get that there needs to be more units, but with the density shift, you're moving about 800 plots. You've changed the story clause. There's no longer a maximum story is for 2.5 stories. So I assume these will be 10-meter units that will be 3-story underground parking. So it'll increase a huge amount of density. I don't believe there's a plan in place for the water system, for the sewer treatment. The single bridge across Illiwassett is not addressed. Just last month, I think it was contemplated that fire services were being reduced despite the growth of town. RCMP involvement, as far as if you're going to add 800 units, you haven't even seen the effect from Mackenzie Village yet. Williams Gate is going to come online. So you're talking about adding a huge amount of units, and in no way when the last version, as far as practice golf facility was there, does it resemble what's being proposed now as far as the density. It's not reflective of the neighborhood, and I'm not supportive of it.
Okay. All right, thank you for your comments. Any questions for Mr. Forrest? Thank you, Mr. Forrest. Anyone else in the gallery that would like to speak, please? I'm going to go back to the original list, and I will come back to anyone in the gallery. So Ms. McIntyre, would you like to speak at this time? No? Thank you. Mr. Goldman, would you like to speak a second time? Ellen Hallow, would you like to speak?
Okay.
All right. Mr. McGee, would you like to speak a second time?
No, thank you.
All right. Mr. Podiak, would you like to speak a second time?
No, thank you.
And Mr. Forrest, any further comments? All right. I'm going to go back to the public. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to speak, or over in the planning department? Seeing no further speakers, I am going to, thank you for that. My corporate officer is telling me I need to call 3 times. So for the first time, I'm going to ask, is there anyone else who would like to speak? For the second time, I would ask if there's anyone else who would like to speak. And for the third and final time, is there anyone else that would like to speak? Seeing no further speakers, I am going to ask for a motion to close this public hearing, and then I will make a public statement, and then all right, so can someone make a motion to end the public hearing? Moved by Councillor Stapleton, second by Councillor Palmer. All in favor? Motion's carried. Following the close of the public hearing, the council or board may do one of the following: adopt or defeat the bylaw, alter and then adopt the bylaw as long as changes don't alter use or increase density or decrease density without the consent of the landowner. After the hearing, council members or committees of council may not hear from or receive correspondence from interested parties relating to the rezoning proposal. If they receive a delegation or correspondence, they will be in effect reopening the hearing and will run the risk of having the bylaw quashed. Now, Mr. Parliament, you have a statement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now that the meeting is closed, this has been a very complex text amendment proposed because of the history. The original master development agreement was signed in 2003 with the province and the proponent. There's been different owners over the years. We have a new OCP, but we have a very dated zoning bylaw. And for the members of the public and those watching online, the zoning bylaw should fit within the OCP. So your official community plan is more at the 10,000, 20,000 foot level, and your zoning bylaw, which makes up the components of the OCP, are more or less at ground level. We have a very dated zoning bylaw in Revelstoke, consistent and common with a lot of communities. So typically you update your OCP and then you align your new zoning bylaw with your new OCP. The challenge with this particular text amendment deals with a comprehensive development zone made up of 10 areas that make up RMR and a couple of other private properties. And we're trying to, at the civic level, align the 10 development areas that make up the CD zone with the official community plan and align it consistent with the master development agreement between the province and RMR, which was signed in 2003. As everyone knows, there's 16,600 bed units of density, both commercial and residential, that are entitled to flow with the lands at a future date, depending on market. And those 16,600 bed units, not dwelling units, a dwelling unit can have 2 or 3 beds in it. So we're talking bed units. It's a big number. When you think of just how large that number is, that's already embedded in the master development agreement with the province. And so the challenge is, where should these bed units go? So this text amendment is to transfer density into certain areas that are consistent with the OCP, the community, the master development agreement, etc. So it's not easy because there's lots of stakeholders. So the challenge with council is trying to align all those. And we've had a lot of staff input. Staff recommendation was to support the density transfer as proposed in the text amendment. We've had legal opinions suggesting that when this is not an approval for density transfer, as stated earlier by Peter Nielsen. Remember, it's just an application to come forward for density transfer. So we have consulted with our municipal lawyers on the challenge of when the application comes forward, how many units go to area 4, area 5, area 3, area 7, pick your area. And as long as it's consistent, it's a tough exercise. And so with that, with the legal opinion that we've received, once this text amendment were to be approved or defeated, we either go to another public hearing and we start all over again if it's defeated. But if we go forward as it's proposed and the text amendment is adopted, council loses its right to revisit where that density transfer goes, and that's been a challenge. So I think everyone here at the council table and staff support the 16,600 units. We honor the master development agreement. We know there will be density transfer, but where do you put it? That's the difficult one. You heard some comments tonight that it should be the best plan for the community, and that's what council wants to do. So I know I'm being long-winded, but I think it's important that that's explained. And so there's lots of questions. If supported, where does the density go? And so what we would like to do at the staff level is to zero in on the comprehensive development zone a little bit more with RMR and talk specifically, where would these densities go? They're trying to build a long-term master plan, but the community's been asking over and over again, where's this density going to go? It's a fundamental question. RMR doesn't know, we don't know. And so how do you find that balance? And that's the challenge. And so right now, this is the decision council has to make. There are some questions we have with RMR, but I think I can assure everyone here, there is a concerted effort to find a win-win here to make this the best resort possible in British Columbia, protecting our downtown core, protecting everything we love about Revelstoke, but also giving the developer what they need, which is some kind of assurance that their future master plan and how this development looks like, neighborhood plans, et cetera, are met with the support of the community. Real tough job to do. So I just wanted to summarize that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
As we go to the question. Thank you.
All right, so we have now closed the public hearing. We've heard from the community both through written and verbal, and we've heard from many organizations, our own legal counsel, as to where we should go. I have a motion that I'd like to put on the table, and if it gets seconded, I will speak to the motion, and then we can see where we go from here. And so my motion is that zoning amendment bylaw 2346 be deferred and that staff be directed to work with the applicant to complete any necessary amendments to address the items related to the application. So is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Devlin. So I'll speak to that motion. One of the concerns we've heard through both RMR has just stated, the community has stated some of the amendments to short-term rental. We've heard about capacity, where some commercial goes, where residential goes, how we access Williamson Lake, those sorts of things. So I would like to move this motion forward, and then at a subsequent meeting, we will give a list of amendments that we feel that staff should work with the RMR on. Any further comments from my council at this point regarding the motion? Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Mayor Souls. So just for clarity, this motion is asking staff to work with RMR, and yet we'll want to have discussion at the council level as to giving some direction for staff. So will we do that at the next council meeting, have that dialogues? So we've had some time to put our thoughts together.
Yeah, and then that way gives us a bit of time to think about it. We can't hear anything else from the public during that time, but gives us a chance to think about it in our own mind, bring it back to the table and discuss with our colleagues around the table as to what we've heard, and give a list to staff as to work to with the proponent. Ms. Floyd, any comment on that? Procedure is okay?
It is, provided that Mr. Simon is able to meet that and to address.
Mr. Simon, would that work for you? Have you heard everything that we've talked about?
Through your worship, ideally we get kind of a list from council with the items that you would like us to address specifically with the proponent. I certainly think that throughout this process, through the committee, the whole discussions through the public hearing today, staff have an idea of where we should be starting, but specific direction from council, whether that comes now or at the subsequent April 11th council meeting, would certainly be appreciated.
Mr. Paul.
Yeah, so Mayor Souza, I would concur and would suggest that at the next council meeting, we'll have some time and then we can provide our thoughts based on the information that we have to date. And just a reminder to myself that I can't receive any more input. So public out there that's watching, don't phone me, don't email me, don't text me on any new information. And I would suggest also that questions be directed. If there's questions for clarification, that be directed to staff. They're better handle that. But I'd be supportive of this motion with the caveat that we have that, give that broad overview, have a dialogue at the next week.
And that's my intention of this motion, is that just to put the staff on notice that we will have that discussion around the table. We'll come up with a comprehensive list of items that we feel need to be addressed with the proponent, and staff can do that. So any further comment from council? Any comment from Councillor Cherry online?
Just for clarification, Your Worship, if any of us are approached by the public, that would essentially squash this motion.
Squash the motion, it will squash the public hearing, but there's a good chance we would have to go back to a second public hearing anyway if there's amendments.
When is our next council meeting scheduled?
April 11th. All right. Councillor Palmer, and then I'll come back to you, Councillor Cherry.
Yeah, just for clarity, if somebody approaches us, that doesn't quash the process. We just have to say, I can't have any new input. If you have clarification questions, talk to staff.
Approach staff. Yeah.
Approach staff. So just don't enter into a discussion.
All right. Is that clear with all of council? Any further discussion on the motion on the table? So I will call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? Note that Councillor Cherry is opposed. Is that correct, Councillor? No, you're in favor? All right, thank you. There's a bit of a delay with the electronic. So that motion has been passed unanimously. All right, seeing nothing before us for the rest of the meeting, I am going to ask for termination of the meeting. Moved by Councillor Staphenhurst, seconded by Councillor Devlin. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you, public, for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming out.
As soon as he gets over.